Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Muji Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satguru Pranatosh Maham Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti Om. Welcome. We are beginning a little later. We begin from the verse 57 of Vivekachudamani. We are going through the koshas, and we are still discriminating the anandamaya kosha, the bliss sheets, the bliss kosha from the self. So the verse 57 says that the anandamaya kosha is a modification born of tamas, is pervaded by the reflected 3 degrees of experiential bliss, priya, moda, and pramoda. It arises out of awareness with the gain of a desirable object. It is pleasurable result of meritorious deeds. When this anandamaya kosha is experienced, anyone who has a body enjoys without effort by becoming ananta itself, limitless itself. Anybody experiencing this as the result of good karmas, so due to merits, or in other words, due to accumulation of punya, is going to experience effortlessly this ananta. So everybody who has got good punya in their karmic account. So is the environment here silent enough?
For me, it's okay. I can understand. A little bit noisy, but not too much.
Okay, the anandamaya kosha is a modification born out of tamas. So this is an important statement. So, and this is something I like to elaborate a little bit, because the anandamaya kosha, as we know, the state of total ignorance, or the state of deep sleep, you know, in which there is no object, no subject, there is no duality. So the whole duality, subject, object, you know, it just dissolves in deep sleep. So that anandamaya kosha is born out of tamas, and it is pervaded by the reflect 3 degrees of experiential bliss. Before we enter into these 3 degrees of bliss, it's important and interesting to analyze this statement of anandamaya kosha as a modification born out of tamas, because it is born out of tamas during the state of deep sleep. Okay, and we all know that anandamaya kosha, this limitless sense of peace, of fullness, is experienced every night when we go to deep sleep. It is a state in which our likes and dislikes, they somehow they are resolved. So they are temporarily resolved. That's the problem with this anandamaya kosha, this tamasic anandamaya kosha. So it's a state in which the intellect, the mind, and all the functions of the sense instruments, you know, the sense reception instruments and the instruments of actions, everything is not available to us in deep sleep. So it's not available to us because there is a huge predominance of tamas. So when that condition is established, we experience great peace and satisfaction. In fact, some of our texts says that the self experiences itself as non-duality, but more technically correct, we say that the self does experience itself because all experience are experience of the self, but the self requires a medium for all these three realms of existence, apparent existence. It requires a medium in the causal body, it requires a medium in the subtle body, and it requires a medium in the physical body. So in the physical body, we have a medium, which is the visual, the experience knowing entity, which is the only one that can navigate and interact in the physical material universe and gain, extract knowledge, good lessons, maturity, and so on. So this is the medium by which awareness or consciousness experience in the physical, material, tangible world. But it does experience as well through the subtle body, and we have the analogy of the dream state. The dream state is consciousness experienced through another entity, which is the dreamer, which is technically known as Tejasa. Tejasa is the medium, is the agent by which consciousness experiences the world of thoughts, feeling, emotions, the dream world, you know? So the same way in anandamaya kosha, in the deep sleep state, the self experienced through an agent, and this agent is called prana. Prana jiva is a very, very subtle, almost non-existent entity by which consciousness experiences non-duality. So this anandamaya kosha is a modification born out of tamas. Why tamas? Because in that state, there is no room for rajas and tamas. So you have satya and rajas. You don't have those, that revealing power. You don't have those rajas. So it's a state in which desires and aversions are no longer operating. In other words, there is no room for any reflection or projection or superimposition derived from these energies, you know, because tamas is not a good reflector. Tamas is the energy which sucks in consciousness, so to speak, quote unquote. You know, it does not reflect. It just absorbs energy, absorbs consciousness. Okay. The same way a black wall is not going to reflect any light, so tamas does not reflect consciousness, so does not reflect the universe on the macrocosmic realm. So sometimes we hear Ramji talk about tamas as the ultimate black hole. I think some of you probably heard him saying that, you understand? So tamas is a modification of awareness, and it produced this anandamaya kosha, is pervaded by the three states, the 3 degrees of experiential bliss. So this experiential bliss, referred as priya, moda, and pramoda, the 3 aspects, because here a little bit further in the same sentence, it says, it is pervaded by the 3 reflect 3 degrees of experiential bliss. So what it says is the experiential bliss is a reflection, okay? It's a reflection of consciousness in a certain state or mental condition, okay? So this reflection, it produced 2 degrees of experiential bliss. So here, in this sentence, we are moving from the anandamaya kosha as born out of tamas, the anandamaya kosha of the deep sleep, and now we are moving into the 3 degrees of experiential bliss. Experiential bliss is only possible if the mind is awake, okay? It arises out of awareness with the gain of desirable objects. So when the mind is awake, no longer in deep sleep, so it's being operated by desires and fears. And every time it accomplished, every time the mind accomplished a desirable goal, a desirable object, so whenever it gains what it wants, the mind as well gets resolved as experiential bliss. But this continuation of this sentence is already referring to anandamaya kosha by the gain or avoidance of objects of desires and objects of fear. So this is the movement here. We have this transaction with the field in which we want what we want and we want to avoid what we do not want. Every time we succeed, we experience a certain degree of bliss. What is bliss? So maybe we should look into bliss. Bliss is nothing, experiential bliss is nothing but it's a mental, emotional condition. So this mental condition, it sets in when what? When the mind is calm, the mind is free from, unnecessary or extreme, mental agitation. What is mental agitation? So I want to get something here or I want to avoid. So this constant movement, running to gain something, fighting to gain something, running or fighting to avoid something, this is what destroys this mental condition called anandamaya kosha as a reflection of consciousness in the subtle body. So when the jiva is awake, he is known as the Vishwa, his mind, depending on the composition of the gunas. Okay, if it's free from excessive rajas and tamas, rajas tends to project and makes the person active in the world, and then tamas tends to bring inertia and apathy and one's freeze, one's more paralyzed. So these two energies, when they somehow they neutralize one another, or in other words, when they get converted into more and more sattva, so on different degrees we experience anandamaya kosha of a different nature. What is the nature of this anandamaya kosha? Is anandamaya kosha that belongs to the Vishwa. The Vishwa is living in the world, and for some reason, its mind modifies, sometimes out of the blue, due to these mental modifications, the proportions of the guna somehow due to our sanchita karma that produce our prarabdha karmas. So in that kind of dynamic flux of change, so the mind sometimes is resolved and one experiences certain degrees of anandamaya kosha. So these different degrees of experiential bliss is called priya, moda, and pramoda. Priya is explained as something that you want to accomplish, and you begin feeling that I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting my money together, my finance together, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to build the house of my dreams. You understand? And then I'm like, the rest of the money, I'm going to invest it and so on. So I feel I'm getting closer and closer because I have been saving, I got some heritage and so on. So I start feeling that satisfaction. And then moda goes to the point in which I have my finance in place. Now, all I need is to find my dream property or my dream home. Understand? And then I start looking around, but I already got my finance in order. Now I just have to find the property that is going to really satisfy me, So one day I'm looking, then I find my dream property with a lake, with a river, with a view of the mountain, everything is perfect. And then I go, I make an offer, and then the selling part accepts my offer, and then we go there, we sign the purchasing, and then I move in. So when I move in, I have this highest possible degree of pramoda. pramoda is coming because the mind was further resolved by finally, literally accomplishing this huge desire that was disturbing my mind, afflicting my mind, and then finally enough, it is accomplished, it is gained. So in that moment, I experienced this huge level of satisfaction that is referred to as pramoda. So we have priya, moda, and pramoda. You understand? So three different. I mean, a lot of people. I got to know a lot of people who lives in this priya mode most of the time. So how can you create a certain low grade, you say, no, of priya? You create priya by being uh, a, a daydreamer. I have met some people, they are daydreamers. They dream about accomplishments. So the very projection and idea and the dream, I would like to do this and that and that. So people that have great ideas a lot of the time, but they don't have the energy to go and get it and accomplish it, you know. So they may experience a certain degree of priya. I got to know someone in Washington States during my life there, that he was associated to a certain school. And in that school, the main thing there was to create reality by the power of the mind. And this person was living in a total poverty, you know. His life was a mess. There was no money, there was nothing, there was his property never took off. He wanted to build a house, just camping there and so on. And he was always having these big thoughts, big ideas, big dreams, and talking big in terms of philosophy and the power of the mind and whatnot. One time he told me very significant when I went to visit him. He turned to me and said, Nagar, he used to call me, Nagar, you see this mess here in my property? He had 5 or 10 or 15 acres. You see this mess here? You know, this is not my reality, man. This is not my reality. Really, he was serious about that. He said, my reality is in here. That is my reality. My reality I create in here. This is not my reality. Don't be deceived. You understand? And I look at the guy and say, oh my God. So this is the ultimate delusion, you know. My reality is in here, and it does not matter whether it is manifest or not, because this is my reality, because my philosophy is that mind over matter. So, and matter does not need to be demonstrated. So manifestation of desire does not need to be manifest, does not need to be demonstrated. It's enough that you dream big and you live in la la land of a great daydreamer. So these kind of people, they do experience a certain degree of priya, you understand? But priya has to be converted into moda to the extent that we begin working towards our goals. We're talking about mundane goals here, you understand? And then as we work towards our goals, we begin to experience a higher degree of bliss called moda. And then pramoda, when we just accomplish our desire, our goal. Yeah? So now what does that say about this experiential bliss? It says that there is something in my mind that prevents me from experiencing this bliss all the time. Do you agree with that? There is something that is preventing me experiencing this bliss all the time. And what is that?
Avidya.
Huh?
Ignorance, yeah.
Desire.
Yeah.
Identification.
too.
Yeah. So what's preventing me to experience this natural state or condition or mental condition known as experiential bliss are the very desires and fears that I project. You understand? We self-impose a certain mental agony by stating to ourselves and to existence, into the field, that I need this and this and that in order to be satisfied, to be happy, to be full and complete. And I need to prevent and avoid this and this and this and that. So this mindset based on my desires and my aversions is what prevents us from experiencing this bliss, anandamaya kosha, in different degrees, you understand? Depending on how agitated my mind is with desires and fears. If it's too agitated, I experience not even moda or pramoda, not priya or priya moda, not even. Just a moment, my telephone. I'm looking into the thing here by. Okay. So this mind, this mindset, we have a certain power over this mindset once we understand the mechanics. If we want to have a good time, if we want to experience peace, contentment, satisfaction, or experiential happiness, experiential bliss, so we need to work on our mindset, not on the setup. So if we keep seeking and searching our desires, we are working on the setup. We are trying to manipulate the setup so that I can experience bliss every time that my mind is resolved by what? By gaining what I want or avoiding what I do not want. So what is the problem with this indirect way of getting bliss? The problem is that it's an indirect way. I get it by the means of transacting with objects. And the second most important difficulty is that the gaining of object is not totally under my control, because there are a lot of other laws operating in the field, including scarcity, competition, and so on. You understand? So I want what I want, but many people want to be a millionaire. So now I have to fight, compete, and so on. So to gain this happiness, this satisfaction, this bliss indirectly, it's something very, very difficult, almost impossible, self-defeating, deceiving, defeating, whereas we have the possibility of working on our anandamaya kosha directly. How we do it directly? By understanding that my desires and my fears are the very root cause of my dissatisfaction. You understand that, Michael? Yeah? So understanding that my fears and my desires, they are the very source of my unhappiness. So now it's easier. And once we understand that, we are at a good point. We'll say, I'm tired, I'm fed up of getting this anandamaya kosha. I'm okay with getting it in deep sleep. But during the waking state, I'm no longer okay with getting small bits and pieces of it every time that I succeed in getting what I want or avoiding what I don't want, because it's so difficult to succeed in life in that sense, especially if we are ambitious. If we start competing and we want more, we never succeed, because there will be always something that is missing. So the only way is to stop working on the setup and working on the mindset. So the mindset, once we understand these mechanics, we are at good point. But then we have to deal with what? We have to deal with these stupid vasanas that sits in our causal body that we say, hey, we don't want you anymore. But they are rude. They are very rude. They just, boom, they pop up in our conscious mind. And then when we see that we are being pushed around by desires and fears, literally. No? So as we can see, understanding is important, but this understanding has to be applied, exercised over and over again until we gradually neutralize these vasana loads, which are mostly based on total ignorance of these mechanics, the very mechanism that, my desires and fears that I keep generate from my unconscious mind, it keeps being generated by unconscious mind. Ramji sometimes likes to say, oh, Ishwara, enough with this. I don't want to know about you. Let's give the finger to Ishwara, no more, So it is our vasanas, but it is not, you understand? But it is, we have a certain degree of responsibility because vasanas, our sanchita karmas, they are just the results of our actions. So how are we gonna say no to these vasanas? You understand? How are we gonna begin neutralizing or removing or canceling those desires and fears that disturb my mind? So we have to do that gradually by applying the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge of karma, dharma, and dhyana yoga of Vedanta, and knowing that it's not an overnight job. We know, we understood the mechanism, we want to experience peace, but yet we have to deal with these persistent, hardwired, stupid vasanas that are going to be pushing us around, I know this from my direct experience, and a lot of people tell me, no, I understood. I know that there is no happiness in any object, therefore I don't want to go for any object anymore. I want to go for contemplation, knowledge, and freedom. And then next time I meet the person, say, so have you found yourself running out of object after your last resolution? And the person is usually honest to say, yes, I have decided not to run after object, but unfortunately, I don't run. My vasanas somehow, they run for object. When I see, I'm just caught up with my vasanas. So we need to understand that this is something that requires persistence, systematic exposition to these teachings and contemplation, application gradually, until these ignorance-based desires and fears, they are gradually neutralized. Let's see where we are here. So therefore, we were talking about the priya, moda, and pramoda, and the rise out of awareness with the gain of a desirable object. So this happiness is okay. The happiness we gain every time we accomplish something is okay, because it brings us to the point, to the understanding, to the conclusion that this temporary, short-lived ananta is not really satisfactory. You understand? You do it again and again, and you work hard, and then you succeed, and then what happens? And then it happens that I have to make another move here because I'm following and I'm talking to you. And then what happens is that a little bit farther ahead, after having succeeded many times, and then find myself having more and more vasanas, more and more vasanas disturbing my mind.